Is my screen visible?
Yep, it looks great.
Thank you. Mouli, shall we start?
I think Erin said she was gonna. Are you gonna be making announcements, Erin?
Oh no, you guys can roll into it. I will post some announcements in the chat right now, but you are good to go. The floor is yours.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world that you're joining. Today, I'm here with two of my teammates. They're part of the Outlook calendar platform team. I got Harini here, who is basically the senior product manager in the team. And we got Kiran, who is a principal engineering manager. And my name is Mouli. I'm a principal PM in the team as well. You go to the next slide, Harini. So today we're going to be talking to you about some new things that we have been releasing in the Outlook calendar that might be interesting to you folks. These are things that we have picked explicitly because of complexity with respect to what we are releasing in Outlook, and partially because these are more technical innards that we want to share with you, and hence we got Kiran here who can actually give some of the under the hood items as well. Go to the next slide, Harini. In specific, we're going to be talking about three features. The first is compliant meetings. Some of you folks might have heard about this. So this is the ability to be able to set sensitivity labels in security and compliance land to meetings. We've not had that feature in Outlook for a while, actually never. And the relevance of hybrid meetings has actually made this super important. The importance of being able to make meetings compliant as well. We're going to dig a little deeper into that. Harini will cover the product bits of it. Kiran will help us run through some of the technical bits. We're also going to talk about some of the G Suite Migrator enhancements in specific with respect to calendar. Harini will cover this. I will talk a little bit about the shared and delegate calendar improvements that we've been working on in the last year or so. Again, Kiran will chip in with some technical under the hood items in this. This is kind of the agenda that we have actually had in mind. We have a couple of our folks in the chat channel as well, and the others who are not presenting would be available. Please feel free to put your questions on the chat. You will either cover them towards the end, or you could wait until the end and ask your question, and we'll be more than happy to answer these for you. With that, let me give the floor to Harini to cover compliant meetings. Go ahead, Harini.
Thank you, Mouli. Good morning and good evening, everyone. First, before talking about the feature, let me talk about why compliant meetings is needed. So as per a recent study, about 84% of US organizations expect a broader and more permanent remote work adoption after the pandemic. We all know the increase in online meetings that we had during the pandemic. Because of this, in many organizations, this increased the need for meetings to be protected. And a key concern for organizations is data egress that contains sensitive and possibly regulated data. And employees often egress data not maliciously, but without knowledge. So this made Microsoft to bring in the compliant meetings capability. And now this is a shared bet across the Microsoft Information Protection, Outlook, and Teams teams in Microsoft. We have also been hearing this request from many of our customers. Customers across verticals, that's finance, healthcare, EDU, have been requesting for this capability. Even governments such as Australian government had regulation that makes protection of certain calendaring items mandatory. And in Outlook, as we know, Outlook already has protection for emails, so it was a natural ask to expect the meetings also to be protected. And with pandemic, and with the increase in hybrid meetings, its need increased further. With that, now let's look at an end-to-end flow from the label configuration to the applying of the label and see how the the content gets protected. So first, in the web portal, IT admins can create sensitivity labels that are scoped for meetings. So as you can see, the meeting labels are always a subset of email labels. For meetings also, the default labels and mandatory labeling can be configured for meetings. The prerequisite for this is that the tenant needs to have an Office 365 E5 subscription. Next, in Outlook, when an organizer creates a meeting, he can apply the sensitivity label to protect their meetings. If the applied sensitivity label requires encryption, then Outlook, as I already mentioned, encrypts the meeting body and file attachments in the meeting invite. And based on the label applied, the attendees will have restrictions on forwarding or copying the content. The prerequisite for this is that the users need to have, or rather the organizers need to have E5 subscription. Let's look at a small demo of the compliant meeting feature in Outlook. So here we will walk you through the organizer flow in Win32 and the attendee flow in OVA. So first in Win32, let's see how the organizer can create and apply a sensitivity label to a meeting and change the label, and we will also look at the label inheritance. So here, as you can see, when the organizer creates a meeting, he or she can apply a sensitivity label. And the label that are displayed here are the ones that are scoped to the tenant and scoped to the user or filtered and shown here for the user to apply the label. So here I'm applying highly confidential recipient only label, which requires encryption of the meeting body and content. So now I can view the label that is applied in the sent items. You can see the label that has been applied. And when I reply all to this message in the meeting message, you can see the label gets inherited. And if I try to apply a label which has a lower sensitivity, then I need to provide a justification for the downgrade. Next we will look from the calendar surface. When I open the meeting invite, I can see the label that has been applied. And when I forward the meeting invite, you can see that the label has been inherited. So this ensures that the meeting always has the label that has been applied originally gets inherited in these user actions as well. Now next, let's look at the attendee flow in Outlook Web. So here we can see how the attendee can view the sensitivity label that has been applied to their meeting invites, and also we'll see label inheritance and the enforcement of the label properties here. So here I've received the meeting invite, and you can see that the label applied gets displayed here. And because this label has enforcement of do not forward, the attendee is not allowed to forward the meeting invite. Next, in calendar surface, when I open the meeting invite, I can see the label that has been applied in the peak view. Yeah, you can see here the label that has been applied. It's displayed. And when I open the meeting form, also I can see the label that has been applied. Now, when the attendee does a reply all, then for the attendee also, the label gets inherited. And they can change it if required with the downgrade justification if they are applying a lower sensitivity label. So that is a demo of the organizer and attendee flow in the clients in which this feature is now available. That is in Outlook Win32 and in OVA. So now let's look at what happens if the attendee uses a client that is not aware of the label. That is, it is a non-label enlightened client, such as Gmail or older versions of Outlook. In this case, the attendee or the meeting participant receives the encrypted meeting invite if an encryption label has been applied, and their user gets a link to view the meeting invites. So upon authentication, user can view the decrypted meeting message and then they can take the action accordingly. So this is an overview of the capability compliant meetings. Now Kiran will take us through what happens under the hood here. Over to you, Kiran.
Hey, thanks, Harini, for setting the context. So we will look at what were the principles that we use to design compliant meeting, and we will talk a little bit about how it works. So there is more appreciation of what we are doing on this side about the feature, and we'll also talk about the limitations for as we release. Yeah, next slide. So this compliant meetings is a adaptation of Microsoft information protection for meetings. So what this Microsoft information protection says is users should be able to identify or tag any information that is there. We should classify, protect. We should be able to search if there is permissions. So the way to understand this feature would be this is parallel to how we have implemented labels in emails, and labeled meetings have the same usage patterns as like regular meetings. So it does not like say you'll be able to create meetings, accept meetings, and do all the actions that were done on regular meetings, that is non-labeled meetings. So those are the principles. And the Outlook clients now enable users to apply these labels. So going in that order. So now let's just take a minute to understand, like say if a organizer of a meeting tags a meeting as highly confidential. So what are the artifacts that are connected to this meeting that also need to be tagged? Like say if the original invite is tagged with highly confidential, then all the meeting copies that reach the attendees should also contain this tag. If each of those attendees, the invite will be in their email also, and it will show up in their calendar surface also. Both the places it should indicate that it has been tagged as highly confidential. As the attendees accept or respond to this reply to this meeting, all those meeting messages and meeting responses should also contain this tag. If this happens to be a Teams meeting, the Teams meeting also should contain the tag. If there is an update to the body or attachments, or for that matter, if the label is upgraded or downgraded, we should update the tags to all of these copies. So yeah, so side note is, hey, calendar event is a little bit more complex compared to the email scenario. Email, you just send it and that's it. So it is relatively straightforward. And then the other thing that is implicit is the server will ensure the protections associated with these labels are enforced. So next slide. Yeah, so the reason that it is enforced at the platform side is there are many clients for Outlook platform. Initially, let's take an example of just 3 clients that we are showing, the Outlook desktop, the Outlook web, and Teams itself. Like say if the implementation of enforcement of these rules were to be done in the client side, it has to be the same thing has to be repeated in all the 3 clients, and maybe somewhere as the feature becomes larger, it might diverge. So uniform behavior is there if it is implemented on the server side, and the client does help. Like say if there is a label called "Do Not Forward," then the forwarding is disabled. So it makes it hard to violate the policy. However, for whatever reason, if either because of a client bug or some malicious user, because these are all open protocols, the server receives forward API for an item with the label as do not forward, then the platform will throw an exception. So the principle what we have done is we are erring on the side of caution. If anything, we are not leaking. If a label is applied to a item, then if it is encrypted, we do not leak that in any what do you say, client or any scenario. In no scenario we are leaking. If it is marked, we enforce, if anything, erring on the side of caution. Next slide. A little bit encrypted events are more interesting. So what happens is there is what the screenshot that you see above is looking at this message in a MFC MAPI tool, and this is showing how the message is persisted or the internal representation of the message. So there are a bunch of name value pairs. The attachment is seen here, and this is RPMSG. RPMSG stands for Write Protected Message. All the information needed to enforce who has the rights to view it and what are the rights that the user has is all there as part of this message. And this is what we were talking about. Hey, clients need to understand what to do with the RPMSG attachment. So, or how to what do you say, decrypt it and render the body and the attachments. So when it is working the scenario for a user who has the rights, it will seem seamless. It will seem just like there were no, if it will seem identical to the earlier workflow, except there is a, hey, this message is confidential or some such tag will be seen. However, if it is opened in a client which does not understand RPMSG, the experience that Harini showed will happen. Hope this gives you a little bit of under the hood thing on how it works. And just talking about the limitations for the V1, as we just released, the support in mobile clients is coming soon. As we release the probably it'll follow quickly. Then there are some scenarios, valid scenarios, where users use the same meeting blob. So those scenarios are not handled. Hey, we will not allow copy pasted meeting blobs for compliant meetings. And then it is not handled in or are not supported in a few scenarios where it is possible to set default tags, like say cross-tenant scenario, group calendar. Some of these are not supported. And then the support for delegates is still evolving. Like say if the principal applies tag, hey, this is highly confidential, should the delegate see the attachments and the body or not? So some of those we are working through that. And then the other call out is the encrypted the meeting body and attachment are encrypted, and the other properties that enable the clients to render this meeting are what do you say? We need to identify this is the meeting. So those are not encrypted. It's not really a limitation. This is how we have designed it. Just calling that out. Yeah. Next slide. Over to you, Harini.
Okay. So thank you, Kiran, for giving the overview on what's happening under the hood. So next, switching gears, now let me talk about the calendar migration improvements that have been done in Google Workspace Migrator. So first, talking about Google Workspace Migrator, this is available in Exchange Admin Center, and batches of users can be migrated from Google Workspace to M365, allowing the migration projects to be done in stages. So we have many of our enterprise customers moving from G Suite or Google Workspace to O365 who use this native tool. Now, as part of calendar platform team, what we are covering here is what's new in calendar migration in this tool. So there are a bunch of improvements that we have done. We are highlighting here the most important ones. So the first one is when when a meeting invite with online meeting details are migrated from Google Calendar to O365, then the online meetings will also get migrated now. This can be either Zoom, Cisco WebEx, or Teams meeting details. All of them gets migrated as is. And if the migrated meeting invite has Teams meeting coordinates, then we ensure that the Teams meeting gets native join experience in Outlook after migration. So this is available worldwide now. The other enhancement that we have done is that in Google Workspace or in Google Calendar, the declined meeting invites get preserved. And when these declined meeting invites get migrated, they block the O365 calendar. That is, the free busy information gets blocked for those slots as well, making the free busy information in O365 to be incorrect. So what we have done is that during the migration, we are preserving the data, but we are migrating them as non-blocking meeting invites to O365 so that the free busy information in Office 365 does not get affected. And if the user re-accepts this meeting invite, then we ensure that whatever was the show as attribute that was set in the original meeting invite gets applied when the user re-accepts the meeting invite. So this is also has been released worldwide recently. The other important capability that we are bringing in is a migration of cloud attachments in meeting invites, which we expect to be rolled out by end of this year. So that is a quick update on the improvements that are made in calendar migration in Google Workspace Migrator. The next topic for the day is about shared calendars, what it is, and what are the improvements, that is the new model shared calendars that is coming up in this space. Over to you, Mouli.
Somebody's got to be the mute guy, right? So that was me this time. Okay, so first thing first. So thanks, Harini. Calendar sharing, to give you a context on what it is and why do people do it, and why is it important to the architect? Right? Why are we even talking about it right now? So by definition, a calendar owned by a user can grant access to another user to either view, edit, or delegate. So that's the whole concept of calendar sharing or delegate sharing. People use this for various purposes. The principal thing that we've seen most times is delegate management. Executives having their admins manage their calendars and so on. There are, of course, many other use cases such as coordinating time and schedules, team vacation, share availability, broadcast a calendar of events, and so on. All of which basically involves a principal having a calendar, and he or she has actually shared this calendar with others, either in the interest of broadcasting or in the interest of being managed for that person. Why is it important, and why are we talking about it right now? But we will talk about it a little deeper in the next couple of slides. It's been a top support call generator for us, primarily because of reliability issues. We have had concerns regarding the calendar updates made by the delegate has not gotten synced to the principal's calendar, and vice versa, and similar performance and reliability problems. So we actually set about going ahead and revising the architecture in the last 1 year or so predominantly. It's been an effort for more than that, but down to brass tacks in the last 1 year. Go to the next slide, Harini. So we'll go over the old architecture and the new architecture to give you a flavor as to what has changed and why things have become more reliable. Right? So shared calendars in general are of the two different types. One is local folders, which is something that all of us are familiar with. This is stored in your mailbox, which is with you, and some types are your primary mailbox, your calendar mailbox, US holidays, etc. Right? You could also have calendars shared with you. In this case, let's say Joe's calendar or a team's vacation calendar, which is the shared calendar. These are actually stored as linked entries, what we call linked entries, because this is really more of a pointer to Joe's calendar or a team's vacation calendar stored elsewhere. So it behooves on the client to basically, whenever you want to access something on Joe's calendar, the client's got to go figure out where Joe's calendar is, which mailbox, go retrieve that and come back. And similarly, the other way around, if there's a change made by the delegate, it's got to go find out where the primary calendar is, go update it, and then so on. So the syncing involves a lot more complexity, which we thought was probably causing the unreliability. You go to the next slide, Harini. So the change has actually been, while it does look simple, and I am obviously oversimplifying it significantly, the change that we did essentially is make copies. Instead of the linked approach that we had earlier, we made actually copies, and the copies are synced. Outlook's calendar and Outlook's mails in general, the clients have always been, the syncing is probably one of the key things that they've actually focused on. So since we have that core competency of being able to sync things properly, we actually made copies. Now the traditional expertise that we have in syncing these folders takes care of the rest. And what happens is, in this case, the old architecture had some limitations on what kind of clients could actually do it. Now all your devices, all your clients can actually take care of it. And we're actually seeing way better reliability, much better performance using the new architecture. Go to the next slide, Harini. So Kiran will briefly talk about, what's the complexity under the hood. Go ahead, Kiran.
Hey, thanks for setting the context. So what has happened is, as Mouli called out, earlier the client had to know how to navigate that pointer. Now we are calling out that, hey, treat that as a local folder. So this is like a write-through cache. When a delegate makes a change to the principals, the owner's calendar, like say in this case, in the example that we have taken, there is an update to an event made by delegate 1, and this principal has 2 delegates. So the calendar is shared with 2 people. So when the update is made, it is like a write-through cache, as I called out. It is first written to the principal's server, and then this is the notifications are sent to all the delegate copies, the server-side copies of all the delegates. So we call this control flow notifications, and then the operation is complete. So earlier what was happening was the client would have to figure out, the client itself has a pointer to the server's principal's server. So this guy would try to write this, and if there was another delegate, so the intelligence of how to write to the principal had to be with the client. And with every upgrade of the client, the older versions, all of the problems that maybe you have seen are with the client side. So now this is a much cleaner approach, where the writes, it's a write-through cache, think of it that way, and then there is a notification broadcast to all the people who need to listen to it. And this is working much nicer with increased reliability and all of that. Can you go to the next slide? So we are happy to call out that we have already migrated about 87% of the delegates. See, the people who were impacted or who will be most benefited by these changes are the delegates. And we took some criteria like, hey, if a delegate is supporting less than 3 shared calendar, 3 principals, let's just make sure this is such an obvious thing that the benefits are so obvious that let's migrate to the new architecture. And the only thing they will see is increased reliability, no change in functionality. So it should work faster. So about 87% of the delegates that are using have already been auto upgraded, and any user with a shared calendar can opt in to this new architecture by a dialogue or a preference in the Win32 client. So this is available. And as we were rolling it out, so this is at scale, right? So as we were rolling it out, we had to have tools to the hypothesis, the premise of this whole new model was that it will have increased reliability, and to make sure that increased reliability is measured, we had a couple of approaches, proactive approaches. Anything that we detect as a gap, we will go ahead and fix it. And we have an internal tool called Sentinel, and I have a screenshot from the Sentinel score, and it is close to 100%. And this is showing at 99.94%. And we also had tools to reactively, if we get an escalation that something did not work as expected, we can go ahead and immediately resolve that issue. So we had these tools, and now we are happy to say, hey, hopefully we are out of the woods. All the issues that were expected to work and was not working as expected, so those should all be gone. So all the clients across the board, you should see, the delegates should see improved reliability, and what do you say? It should work as expected. So with that, actually, I am done.
Actually, all three of us are done. Thank you so much, Kiran and Harini. So that brings us to the end of this session. Quick recap, we covered compliant meetings, which I mentioned in the chat. This should be available for folks early next year. We're still in final stages of development and testing and so on. The G Suite Migrator work is already available in GA, and the new model for the new architecture for the delegate scenarios for the syncing is actually rolled out to a significant number of delegates already. There is a way by which people can actually go and do it by themselves, but it is out there, it's released. So that's pretty much all we had to present. We do have some time to take some questions, and we will, of course, go ahead and answer all the questions that you folks had in the chat. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. So the new share calendar, the new share calendar option that you were mentioning in the last slide, that actually caused a lot of issues for our organization. I think some other people commented as well. Now, is there specific requirements to be able to use that? Like, does everyone have to have the latest Outlook client, or is there some requirements for that? Or because it's not rolled out to all users, is that why we were seeing some issues? Because we were seeing issues, we actually turned it off on all workstations via GPO, and it is still turned off at this point.
Yep. As we were rolling out, probably there were some issues. You are probably one of the early adopters. Some issues you have seen. Now it should be much more stable.
So regardless of what Outlook clients we have, everyone should be able to use that, right?
The Outlook client, the newer Outlook client is being rolled out. If you are on the semi-annual channel, you should already have the latest client. So what is happening is, there is a version of the principals folder which is available on this mailbox. However, it is up to the client. If you are using an older client, probably it will still continue to use the pointer.
Okay, so.
If you have turned it off, the client is using the pointer, whatever you were seeing earlier. Okay. If you enable it, it will read local.
Okay. So I guess we do have to test it and make sure that, but you're deploying, it's almost at the end of the road for all deployments, all servers on the back end, right? So
Correct.
Yeah. So another quick question on, and I don't know this, I'm sure you've been asked this in the past. Is there a roadmap to add calendar to be able to change calendar organizer from existing meetings, or are you looking at that at all, or is it something something we can expect, or you're not looking at it at all? Or I'm just kind of curious, because that's one of the issues that we run into, because when people leave the organization, as you know, they don't just cancel the meeting, and there's a lot of issues with that.
Mouli, you want to take that?
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, Hiran? I had a bit of a audio issue that I'm sorry.
Just a question about existing meetings. Do you have roadmap to be able to change organizer from existing calendar to different people?
That's definitely on our roadmap. We haven't quite prioritized it as yet. There are a few underlying platform bits that we need to get in order before we do that. But yes, that's definitely on our radar. It's a highly asked for feature. We are looking at it. We will prioritize it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Erin, if there are no other, there's one more question. Go ahead.
All right, it was asked in the thread, but you guys might have missed this one. We have a lot of, shall we say, many-to-many relationships with some of our AAs, some of them being delegates for as many, I think the largest one I know of is 14 people. Will there be a degradation in performance for them with this new model, or should we continue with the old model, as other people have suggested, by turning off downloading shared calendars and turning off the new improvements? Because although that's slow, at least it works.
Okay, so as part of auto migration, it has not been upgraded if you have 14 principals, many to many. So, however, it is possible to set it up, and there is some overhead, but reliability should be there. It should be just as reliable.
So you think I could go to one of my people, have them turn that on? Do they have to be? Does it have to be turned on each of the principals as well as each of them? And do we also have to turn on download shared calendars?
Now, the option will be with the delegate to turn it on in the Win32 of the delegate. They can turn it on. Or there are multiple ways to actually get to the new model. Like if you add any new relationships, any new sharing that comes, that will be in the new model. So if they remove that or add it again, then that will be in the new model. You can test it with a few of them, and then.
Do they have to remove and re-add? Is that what you're saying?
That is one way. There is a dialog box which we had just used a screenshot of in the presentation. In that dialog box, you can say, "Hey, I want to migrate to new. I want to get a new model," and it will be in the new model. It is self-serve.
Yeah, I guess you went through that too quickly because I didn't see exactly how that was gonna.
Fine, that'll be in the release notes. There will be some write-up we can publish on how to get to the new model.
Yeah, I've got a few hundred AAs, and with a few thousand people that use them as delegates. So it'll be interesting.
Go ahead, Manal.
Hi, I have a question. We have on-premise meeting rooms set up. So once a user, like they want to rename their rooms, right? We rename their rooms in AD, And in the Outlook, they are not getting renamed automatically. They have to remove those rooms and re-add them again from the address book. Is that something needs to be addressed?
Hey, Manuel, we'll probably take that down as a feedback. I don't have an answer for you at this moment in time, and
Sure.
we'll see how we can address it. Thanks for that.
No problem.
Yeah. All right. Patrick?
Hi, thank you. I think the question was also asked about, do you need to have the shared folder box checkmarked on that same screen for this to work, or is it independent?
Kiran, would you know that?
No, I have to get back.
We'll have to get back on that.
Or
Patrick, as
Harini, do you
well.
know?
This is the underneath the cache exchange mode settings and the use cache mode exchange. Do you need to have the download shared folders checkmarked or not for this to work?
Yeah, you need to have it checkmarked.
So what happens if you don't have it checkmarked and you do turn on the shared calendar improvements?
I'll have to get back to you on that client side.
Okay. Is there something I should do to get that feedback?
That would be useful, Patrick. I mean, if there is a support person that you already work with, it should probably come in through there. If not, I think the support person would probably be the best person to do that. Or if you're on one of the Exchange admin mailing lists where you can ask this question and it'll get redirected to us.
Even as a premier support
would
customer.
like to know that.
Yes.
Oh, in that case, we'll publish a blog post or something.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah, because I think going through support, we're going to spend weeks trying to get to PG to get this kind of an answer.
Makes sense.
Sure.
Makes sense. That's good feedback. Yeah, we'll probably publish something on what people should do if they want to do it by themselves, and what are the gotchas and what they should and should not do.
Great, thank you. Because we saw problems with it early on as well, and I'm looking forward to that being more stable now.
Gotcha. Thanks. Alrighty, just about time. We got 5 minutes more. Erin, I believe we're done with the questions.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, if you guys are all done, I'll just kind of remind everybody maybe one more time that we would love to get your feedback from today's session. So I put that link in the chat window again for you guys to give us your feedback. And other than that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining.